Hey guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. This is your host Thomas Irie from On the Hot Podcast. Today, this will be the Combat Series episode number 45 for you guys today. Of course, this episode is going to be coming out on all four of our platforms: our Instagram account, our Facebook account, our YouTube account, and our Apple Podcast account. So let's go ahead and dive into the very first segment of the Combat Series this week. I'll be sharing my UFC 300 main event fight summary between Alex Pereira and Jamahal Hill. So last night in the world of UFC and in the MMA world, we saw Alex Pereira successfully retain his light heavyweight championship against Jamahal Hill in the main event of the historic UFC 300 pay-per-view. So these are my following thoughts on the fight summary. We saw Alex Pereira knock out Jamahal Hill in the first round to successfully retain his light heavyweight championship in the main event of UFC 300. Now, what we saw before the fight, moments before the fight, when you saw Alex Pereira's walk out to the octagon where he shot that bow and arrow to the octagon and Jamahal Hill caught the bow and arrow, broke it in half over his knee, you knew that somebody was bound to get knocked out in that fight between Alex Pereira and Jamahal Hill. And the excitement of the fight lived up to the hype. As short of the fight it was, the hype and the expectations lived up to it, because I personally knew somebody was going to get knocked down the octagon. But when Jamahal Hill got called for the low blow, Herb Dean tried to step in. Jamahal Hill said, "Hold on, bro, let me cook." It looked like that little meme there. But Alex Pereira went in for the kill on Jamahal Hill, landed that signature left hook, and that was all she wrote, because Jamahal Hill looked up to the sky, looked up to the ceiling in the T-Mobile Arena. The man was knocked out cold by the time he touched the canvas, and that's all she wrote. And Alex Pereira went on to successfully retain his light heavyweight championship. Me personally, I would have liked if the fight lasted at least to the second or third round. But Alex Pereira does not get paid by the hour, and he was definitely looking forward to that $300,000 bonus that Dana White promised to anybody out there that said they would finish their opponent off on the UFC 300 card. And Alex Pereira lived up to what he did, so he got that $300,000 bonus to his victory, successfully retained the title, and is going to move on as the light heavyweight champion in the UFC. So then, with that being said, after his victory, what is next for Alex Pereira? So I know that Alex Pereira has said he said last night that he really wants to fight on the UFC 301 card. And that pay-per-view card is only 3 weeks away. Now, that's a very short time to recover, but Alex Pereira was barely touched. But as you guys know, MMA fighters, boxers, all combat sport athletes go through a grueling training camp. They put a lot on the line to get themselves in top-tier shape. They go through a lot, 2-a-day, 3-a-day trainings to be in the best physical condition that they could be in. And Alex Pereira has said that he wants to fight so bad in his home country of Brazil at UFC 301, but it just seems so unlikely because it's only 3 weeks away, and that would be a really fast turnaround for anybody in combat sports. So moving forward, I should say this: instead of defending his light heavyweight title at UFC 301, he actually had aspirations to move up to the heavyweight division at UFC 301. But moving forward, I would not be surprised if Alex Pereira does have his aspirations set to become the first ever 3-division world champion in UFC history. Nobody's ever been a world champion in 3 different weight classes and 3 different divisions in UFC's history. But Alex Pereira, only having less than 10 fights in his UFC career, already being the middleweight champion, already being the light heavyweight champion, it's not impossible to think that Alex Pereira could really go up to the heavyweight division and win the heavyweight title one day. But I think moving forward, I would not be surprised if Alex Pereira maybe has one more title defense at the light heavyweight division, or he just has aspirations of quickly moving up to the heavyweight division moving forward. And I would not be surprised if he wants to get into the octagon in his first, if he fights at the heavyweight division against Tom Aspinall. But I think that's who he wanted to fight at UFC 301. Tom Aspinall has said that he will not fight Alex Pereira ever in the octagon, but money talks. And that's a big fight that could present itself one day at the heavyweight division. So we will see what happens, but I would not be surprised if Alex Pereira has aspirations to move up to the heavyweight division in the near future. So what's next for Jamahal Hill? So Jamahal Hill's unfortunate loss last night did set him back in the light heavyweight rankings. He's a former light heavyweight champion in his own right, won the title in 2023, but never got the chance to defend the title after suffering an Achilles injury. So now he has lost his first fight back against Alex Pereira in the championship fight, the title that he never lost, but he lost the title fight last night. So it's back to the drawing board for him. But he's still going to be a top 5 contender in this division. I don't see him falling out of the top 5 rankings. So I would not be surprised if Dana White and the rest of the UFC executives think it's best for Jamahal Hill's interest to match him up against Yuri Prochazka. Now, both of these guys have something in common. Both were light heavyweight champions that were stripped. Oh, that was a fly. They both were stripped of their light heavyweight titles, unfortunately due to injury, and never got to defend their titles. Both have suffered losses to Alex Pereira in recent memory for the light heavyweight title. So both, and Yuri Prochazka just had an impressive victory on the UFC 300 premiums last night before the main card began. So I think this would be a good way to have both of these guys fight each other for aspirations to get next in line for a light heavyweight title fight down the line in 2024, early 25. So I think that fight between Jamahal Hill and Yuri Prochazka would make a lot of sense. It would be very entertaining to see this fight. So we'll see what's next between Jamahal Hill and Alex Pereira following the UFC 300 pay-per-view fight. But that is my thoughts on my fight summary between the fight of Alex Pereira and Jamahal Hill.